I don't even want to bother reading the job description here because there's a bunch of things that I want to look at first. For example, have the client received good reviews? If they haven't, that's a big red flag, and you want to have a closer look at the freelancer reviews down here to see what the problem was. Sometimes it can be a bit unfair on the client because some freelancers are very unreasonable, but more often than not, freelancers tend to be quite generous with their client reviews, so this is pretty reliable. Second thing we want to look at is how many jobs have they posted and what's the hire rate. So for example, if they have posted 100 jobs and the hire rate is 20%, then the likelihood is that they won't be hiring. 80% of the time they'll post a job and not hire anyone. So I wouldn't apply to those jobs. Maybe aim for something with 50% hire rate or higher, or even if you want to be more picky, 80% or higher, because then the likelihood is that they will hire someone, maybe not you, but at least you have the chance to get hired for the job. Then I also want to look at how much money have they spent on the platform. If they haven't spent a lot of money, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it does tell you a bit about how much money the client has, right? So here I can see that they've spent $104,000 on Upwork, which means that, of course, they've made more money than that in their business, otherwise they wouldn't be able to spend it. And then I also want to look at what's the typical hourly rate paid, or the average hourly rate paid, and that's 15 in this case. This is not always indicative of how much they're willing to pay you, because they could be hiring a bunch of other freelancers, a virtual assistant for $5 an hour, or a web developer for $50 an hour, who knows. So this is just the average, but it still gives you some kind of indication. If they only have $3 hourly rate paid on average, then the likelihood is that they'll pay you $50 is a bit lower. Then we move down here. As you can see, the budget is $30. I'm again not really paying attention to that because it might be a placeholder. They might not understand how much money is involved. And also we want to look at preferred qualifications. Now here I can see that they have selected America's United States, United Kingdom, Australia, Ireland, and New Zealand as the locations they want their freelancers to be in. That means my proposal, however good, is going to end up in the other folder when I send a proposal. So I'm most likely not going to be their first choice. Even though I might be the best qualified for the job, they will be looking at candidates from these places first. And then if they even notice that there is a folder with other freelancers who didn't meet the qualifications, then they might go into it and consider those people. So for me, this is automatically a disqualification of this job. I don't want to spend my connects applying for a job where I'm going to be put into an other folder and then maybe not even be considered. Then we want to look at how many proposals. Again, if you're afraid of a lot of competition, then 50 proposals might be daunting or intimidating, but here it's only 10 to 15, so that's not too bad. And then we can also see when it was last viewed by the client. So if it's been a full day since the client viewed the job post, that's fine. They might still be interested in hiring someone. But if we can see that they viewed it 43 minutes ago, then it means that they're probably actively looking at whichever applicants they get in because they're eager to hire someone. So the fact that they've looked at this very recently is a very good sign for me. And then we can also see how many they're interviewing. Now, this is a bit tricky because it doesn't mean that they've started talking to freelancers that have applied to their job necessarily, because they also get invites, right? So if they send out invites to a freelancer and that freelancer responds to that invite, it counts as an interview. But it doesn't mean the client has actually looked at their proposal yet or even considered them for the job. It just means that they responded to their invite. However, in this case, we can see that they haven't sent any invites and they are interviewing two. So those two people they're interviewing are going to be from these 10 to 15 proposals they received. So that means they're actively sifting through the applicants right now. So now's the time to strike. Here we see the bid range. I never look at that because my bid is not really affected by what other people are bidding. I always just go with the placeholder bid or my standard hourly rate, because 99 times out of 100 the price will be negotiated in the chat after the client responds to my proposal. So this doesn't matter to me, and neither does this down here. What does matter to me is who the client has hired in my category in the past. So if we go to my profile here, you can see that I charge $75 an hour. So what I want to know is, has the client paid a similar rate to another freelancer in the past? Because if they have hired copywriters and they've only paid $10 an hour, the likelihood is that they're not going to be paying me $75 an hour, because clearly they don't value the quality that I bring to the table as a copywriter, and they're very unlikely to hire me. So that's why I like to have a look at both their jobs in progress and their client history. So for example, here I can see, okay, they have hired a writer before, So what I like to do is to open up these freelancers' profiles in new tabs as well. And then I want to look at each of these profiles to see, okay, this guy charges $30 an hour, $15 an hour, $30 an hour, and $35 an hour. So going back to my previous point, I charge $75 an hour, which is more than double of the highest paid writer. So the likelihood is that they will not be hiring someone like me because their budget does not allow for that, or they don't see the value in it. So now that we've gone through all these other criteria about how high their hire rate is, how much money they've spent, how much money they pay, if we're qualified to work with them based on our location, if they've checked the job post recently, if they paid similar freelancers in the same category an amount that is equal to or greater than our rate, then and only then do I want to spend my precious time reading through this long description to see if I'm actually interested in applying for this job. And what I'm going to be looking for here is how much effort have they put in to writing the job description, because some clients will just include like one line, I'm looking for a writer, please contact me. I think that's sloppy, and it tells you a bit about what the client will be like to work with. I'm going to take all these criteria that I've outlined here and apply them to all these other jobs that I've shortlisted here in my browser, and then we're going to see how many jobs out of these make the cut. We started from 10,000, now we went down to 17, and after I've applied all these criteria I've gone through with you, we'll see how many are left standing that I'm actually going to apply to.